to Know with Carla Pileggi Caviola. Today on our show, we will be talking about specialized support for NICU families with our special guest and expert, Lily Smith Klein. Lily Smith Klein is a founding board member of the Tiny Miracles Foundation, a nonprofit in Connecticut in the United States of America. She was also the president of the Tiny Miracles Foundation for 9 years and has been responsible for the development of many of their parent support programs. She has done tremendous work in Connecticut, and we are grateful to have her on this episode today. It is a true honor to have you with us today, Lily.
Good to
Thank you.
see you today, Carla.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to
It's
be
great
here.
to see you. Always great to see you. All right, so Lily, we're going to jump right in. Tell me a little bit about your story. You can certainly share anything about your personal kind of story, educational and professional background, and just kind of again how this all leads up to what you're doing currently in this line of nonprofit work, and also obviously with the Tiny Miracles Foundation.
Mhm. So my life story is very interesting because it had a huge pivot in the middle of it up
Okay.
until early in my career. So I went to college in Ohio. I went to Denison University and I went straight into banking and working in private wealth management for a long time. But I always was a kid person, always wanted to be a teacher. So I went to graduate school at night to get my degree in early childhood education and went to Bank Street in New York. And while I was working, I did that and then converted to becoming a teacher and got married, and I was teaching kindergarten and preschool young children. So because I just was always that person who wanted to be working with kids. I just had to wait till I could afford it. I really never could. And then I got married. So I was very fortunate to be able to change to the career that I wanted to have. And then my story took a big turn because I became pregnant with my first child and lost that baby when I was 24 weeks pregnant. My water broke spontaneous and the baby did not survive. And that was the beginning of a very long, difficult journey to have children. I then could not get pregnant naturally. There was a uterine infection after that late loss, and I could never have a child again naturally. So I suffered through and, battled through and endured probably 5 in vitro cycles to have my first child. And they knew I had a weak cervix at that point, so they put me to bed, and I had placenta previa and had a terrible in and out of the hospital experience to have that child. But that is my oldest child, who's now 29 today, and I did carry her to term happily. So that was a difficult pregnancy, but I did bring home a full term baby.
Yes. And you were on bed rest at that time,
I was on bed
right?
rest
So,
for
I
four
mean,
months.
obviously that,
Yep.
yeah, high risk pregnancy. And then,
Yep. First loss, then my rainbow baby through a high risk pregnancy and
yeah,
infertility in between.
yes.
And then I wasn't going to give up because I really wanted my oldest child to have a sibling. So I continued on and did more in vitros, multiple early miscarriages through that time, and then was pregnant with twins, which was very alarming because we knew I had a very weak cervix. And so they sewed up my cervix and put me to bed at 12 weeks, I think. And I was on bed rest at home and then in the hospital for 5 weeks on bed rest in Trendelenburg, where you can't put your feet down.
Wow.
Bedpans, ew, that was fun.
Yeah.
And then my water broke. Finally, my water just broke at 26 weeks in that position in the
Wow.
hospital. So I gave birth to two 1.5 pound babies in the year 2000 at Stanford Hospital. And one of them was her lungs were extremely premature. She could not stay at Stanford Hospital and she was transferred to Columbia. So I went through having a 3-year-old at home, a 2 pound baby at Stanford Hospital, and a 1.5 pound baby with double collapsed lungs in New York. And this
Wow.
went on for about 6 weeks. And then my baby in New York was starting to recover. So she was brought to Stanford, and I had both twins. Grace and Larson are their names. two girls at Stanford. And they were there for 3 months and 4 months. They came home a month apart. They had probably every complication a preemie could have. Um, they had interventricular hemorrhages in their brains. They had holes in their hearts. One of them had a neck scare, as I just said. One of them had double collapsed lungs and was septic as well. We were on and off ventilators for 6 weeks, 8 to 8 weeks, and then CPAP, and then regular oxygen. It was a long, long road, and very, very scary, and very, very lonely. And 20 years ago, there was no internet. There was no cell phones. The only thing we had was that phone attached to a wire in the car that had an antenna on top of the car. And you were very fancy if you had that 24 years ago. So we didn't have access, no parent had access to any sort of support, and it didn't exist. It didn't exist. The only support I had back then was other parents that were in the NICU, or a book that I went to Barnes and Noble to find, which was primarily medical. And then I had two friends that had preemies. One friend had twins as early as mine, who was actually a fairly good friend, but he was a male, and his wife had too much PTSD to talk to me about it, and he couldn't really express himself, except there was a lot of beeping going on, is what he said. I remember. So it was a long traumatic experience for me to have children, a very long, emotional roller coaster. I had years of anxiety, a lot of PTSD, and I didn't know what PTSD was. So I couldn't understand why I had such high anxiety when the TV turned on and there was an ambulance, or if there was a hurricane on the Weather Channel, or if a friend came up to me and said that they were having some difficult time. I couldn't handle anything or anybody. And I had to really insulate myself from other people's stress and sort of the world, and really focus on just being a mother, because I was severely traumatized. But I didn't know I had PTSD. I just knew I wasn't right.
Yeah.
And my friends would be like, "Where's your happy, fun, easygoing Lily self?" And I said, "She's gone. I don't even know." I just knew. I said, I've been through a lot, and I've been through what I felt like was a war, and I didn't know when I would feel like myself again. So during all of this time, I was thinking to myself, I've got
It's
to do
a lot
something.
of pain, right, Lily? It's a lot of pain that you've been through. I mean, a
Yeah,
lot
it
of
was
loss, a lot of grief, a lot of pain, and then being on eggshells
yeah,
during your pregnancies, high risk pregnancy, not knowing what's going to happen or
hmm
not happen, being on bed rest, and that can be isolating in itself. And then having
very.
term babies, and then all the medical complications, having
Hmm.
the separation, right, of not being with the babies. You have one preemie in one hospital, one in another hospital.
Hmm.
I cannot even imagine how difficult that was for you and your
Yeah,
husband. And
extremely hard.
my
I
heart
didn't
goes
know it
out
at the
to
time,
you,
but I
all
was in,
parents in this type
yeah,
of situation. Yeah,
I didn't know it at the time, but I was in fight and flight mode. I was in cope, cope,
exactly.
cope. Yeah. And I was determined to get these babies home, and determined to help them get through what they what they were going through and what I was going through. So because of this life pivot of mine, I call it my 10-year trauma of trying to have children. And it was over 10 years. I was a changed person, and I was a mother of three children under three, but a very changed person. My priorities had changed. My sensitivities had changed. My passions had changed, and my gratitude was huge. And I felt like I needed to do something for the people forward that were going to go through this also. So I told my doctors to please call me if some mother had a baby similar to my situation, that I wanted to come in and help them. So my doctor did call me, and he asked me to come help a woman named Gwen Noto. And I helped her through it. And she had 25-week twin boys. And then she came out of that, and she joined Mothers of Multiples and met another woman who went through it, who was introduced to her through the hospital, Meredith Daniels. And the two of them started the Preemie Parent Hotline. at Mothers and Multiples. And they got so many phone calls and it was so intense, they couldn't handle it all. And they said they wanted to form something more solid and more organized. And so they came up with the idea of the Tiny Miracles Foundation. They presented it to the doctors at Stanford Hospital, where all of our babies were born. And they wanted to bring peer support directly into the hospital, which was never done in this country, ever, everywhere, anywhere.
Wow.
Um,
And remind
and
me, what year was this, Lily?
the year 2004,
2004.
2003, 2004,
2003, 2004. Okay.
a long time ago. And it was not literally, it was not even being done in Europe. The Bliss organization was in Europe, which was family support groups outside of the hospital, but there was no on site. We were very lucky. So at that time, I heard about Gwen doing this through another friend, Kimball Veely, who had joined the board, and about 8 other women who have had premature babies around the time I did, all joined together and formed the Tiny Miracles Foundation. And we started it out of Gwen's house and then my house, and it grew from there. It grew from there. So Stanford Hospital was the first place that we started. And we were trained by the social workers there how to provide peer support. We were given limited access. We were allowed to be outside of the NICU. And then eventually they let us in. And we trained more and more volunteers, and that's how we started. That was our original programming, was just the on-site peer support, and it grew from there.
That's an amazing story. And again, my heart goes out to you in regards to your losses and all of the
Yeah,
traumatic experiences you went through, whether it be traumatic loss or grief, and just all of that with the, NICU experiences. It's definitely,
it
sounds like
changes you.
had a painful, up
Hmm.
and down roller coaster. And then grief is a funny thing. You might be fine one minute, then you're,
Hmm.
sad the next, then you're
Hmm.
fine, then it kind of sucks you down again, right? So
Hmm.
there's a lot that you went through, but yet
Hmm.
you were determined, like you said, to get your babies home and to, it sounds like they're all thriving now, but certainly it was a rough road,
It was a
uh,
very long road.
painful
Yeah.
road. Yeah. But yet now you've also taken your own experience, and by reaching out to someone else and trying to help them in their pain and also roller coaster ride, um, they are now, you guys have literally formed, that was the beginning of the Tiny
It
Miracle
was.
Foundation,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
helping others going through it so they don't have to go through this alone,
Yeah.
which is amazing. This is really amazing work, and I think anyone hearing this podcast will really feel like this is just. I mean, I know this is touching my heart here, and I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure that this is touching everybody's heart.
Yeah.
Just to be able to come alongside these families at such a delicate time when sometimes you're faced with life or death, right?
Yeah.
Is a beautiful thing that you are all doing at the Tiny
Yeah.
Miracle Foundation.
Yeah. Well, there's, I decided I needed to make lemonade out of my lemons. Um, there are a lot of ways that families cope with this. Some people want to forget it and move on. There's a lot of families of premature babies who could no way go back into the NICU and handle bedside being with other parents who are going through it, because the trigger for them and the emotional response for them is just too overwhelming. And
Mhm.
then there's other people like me who need to put both feet back in, who need to process it over and over again to help other people to heal themselves. And everybody processes grief and trauma differently.
That's
Everybody
right.
does. And the one thing I've learned on this journey is to respect and understand everybody's way of processing trauma and grief, because there's no two ways for it to go, and no way that's better than another. You have to understand and know yourself, and what kind of person are you, and what have you become, and what works for you. You know. So this
Yeah.
is what worked
Yes.
for me, and it's interesting when you become a peer mentor. One of the first things you learn as a peer mentor, and you would learn as a therapist like you are, Carla, is that everybody you meet, you're meeting at a different time in their emotional journey, and
Yes.
they have a different set of stressors than the person you met yesterday or the day before or the day before. They have all kinds of different family supports or lack thereof, religious beliefs,
Mhm.
and priorities in their life that are going to be different, and support systems that are different. So, whoever you're meeting, there's no exact cookie cutter way you're going to support that person. You really have to listen to them a lot to figure out where they are. Sometimes experienced peer mentors like myself, I can kind of figure it out just by their body language when I walk in. But for the most part, everybody is in a different place emotionally. And if they're willing to open up to you, you can figure out where they are and where you start supporting them.
Yeah.
Um, some parents, so some of most parents, almost all parents of premature babies, have an incredible sense of guilt and failure
Mhm.
because a mother's natural response is to blame herself. And if she's not blaming herself, she's mad at a medical professional. So it's usually one or the other, but it's almost always something I did. What did I do to cause this? And or mad at your body and my body sucks and I should never have had children. I remember one of the first thoughts I had when I saw my twins was I should never have tried to have more babies. I should have stopped at my first child and just stopped there and stopped. Shouldn't have pushed the envelope. Look what I've caused now. I remember that going through my head multiple times.
That self-blame,
And
right?
yep, and the stress that I had put on my family because I tried, and look at what I've done to my husband and look at this disaster. And so most mothers feel that way. Fathers, what did I miss? What didn't I do to support her? How much stress was I not taking off of her that caused this? Now she could have died if it was a traumatic birth. And what did I do to not assist my wife and not help her through this that caused it to get this bad? So fathers go through a different sense of guilt and failure, and then lack of not knowing what to do. So almost all premature babies feel that feeling, but as a peer mentor, you can't walk in and say, I know you feel like you failed. You can't do that because
Right.
that is validating something that they don't want validated. What you have to do is just approach them of how are you today and tell me what's going on and sort of balancing out their feelings based on I've been here,
Yeah.
and then they usually start to talk. Usually
Yeah.
start to talk.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, when you're supporting everyone and everybody has a different life and different stressors and different situations, cultural backgrounds, religious
Hmm.
backgrounds, all of that, you know, everyone will deal with it differently. So it's one thing to we have our own stories, but then not to right be careful not to project ours on them,
Hmm.
right? And I think you said something earlier about grief. You know, everybody grieves in a different way. There's no right or wrong way to grieve, and there's certainly no time frame. Some people think, oh, you can just the first year is going to be bad. Well, that could be the hardest year, but it could grief can certainly be prolonged. It can certainly last for multiple years, and especially when it's this type of a grief, losing a child, right? Losing a
Right.
baby,
So it's grief
pregnancy.
with trauma.
Exactly.
So you're
Exactly.
experiencing loss of what should have been, but
Yes.
it's trauma too. You've been
Yes.
traumatized, traumatic birth, watching your children go
Yes.
through terrible medical things that should never be done to them, drugs that are put into them. The way nurses handle them traumatizes a mother.
Yeah. Yes.
The way somebody spoke to them can traumatize them in the NICU setting.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. It's a lot of trauma. And certainly, if there's a loss, it's traumatic grief.
hmm
I think the one thing I can say on my end, coming from, again, a psychological perspective, is there's always going to be a healthier or unhealthier way to deal with loss and grief, right?
yeah,
Some people might turn to alcohol, drugs, dangerous behaviors, things like that. That would be an unhealthy way of
hmm
dealing with it, right? Versus
hmm
really allowing yourself to feel these emotions,
hmm
and finding healthy coping skills to do that, whether it's journaling, art, talking or even getting support, right? With a
Yep.
counselor, getting support, also the peer support that you offer in the
Yep.
Tiny Miracles Foundation. So there's a lot of different ways to grieve. Everyone's going to grieve different, but there's always the healthy or unhealthy that we want to help people move towards that healthy
Yeah.
way
Yep.
of grieving and dealing with trauma,
Hmm.
because this can be so traumatic for sure. So I thank you so much for sharing that. Would you say, in your experience, what would be also, I know you mentioned some already, but are there any other very common or most common challenges that you find parents and families experience regarding maybe having a NICU experience or even a high risk pregnancy?
The biggest challenge for almost all parents with having a premature baby is the lack of control over everything else in their life.
Mhm.
So they have very little control over a difficult pregnancy. You just have to give it up to the doctors and nurses and pray that they're going to help you through the difficult pregnancy and do the right things. And then when you have a premature baby, again, you have a very deep sense of lack of control because you don't know anything about this or how to help the baby. And so you're reaching for any kind of control you can get. So the hurdles is, and we do a lot of this, is helping a parent understand the controls they do have and where they can make a difference in their baby's lives. So the biggest hurdles for parents is that getting over and moving forward from the feel of failure to, and dealing with that lack of control feeling for everything that's going on in their home life with another child, with work, with finances is a big one, because a lot of parents have been working and then boom, they have no income again because they have, a sick child and they weren't expecting to have their child and those last few paychecks didn't come through. They may not have maternity benefits, and that's a huge hurdle for a lot of our moms because of our lovely country and the lack of proper benefits for
Parenthood.
postpartum women.
Yeah.
So the hurdles that parents face are: do I have to go back to work? How am I going to get to the NICU? How am I going to take care of the other child at home? How am I going to get this baby home safely and then be able to stay home to take care of a child that's fragile and not go back to work? So, those are the biggest things that we deal with and that we try to help parents through, so that they can parent their child in the NICU. And the biggest other hurdle that we try to work with parents on is: you are the most essential caregiver for your baby. You are the one that's going to notice there's something wrong before the medical provider. You are the one that can actually heal this baby over the doctors. And getting parents in that mindset is one of our biggest goals. And parents really struggle to believe that they have that power, and they struggle to believe that they actually can help their baby, and that because many of them, the first time they hold their baby beeps and dips in breathing, and they immediately put the baby back and say, I can't touch this baby, I can't help this baby, this
Yeah.
isn't, I'm continuing to make things worse. So they struggle to have power, they struggle to know their power, they struggle to understand that actually you are the biggest healing body in here. Your presence and your physical body for this baby and your voice and your touch
Yes.
is
Yes.
what fixes them.
Yes.
So the
Fetuses
hurdles
are
are
so
very
aware
basic.
of that. Fetuses are
Mhm.
already aware in utero, right? They can recognize voices at a certain
The,
point in their story.
yeah,
Right? That attachment has already started to form in utero.
correct.
Yes.
So when a baby's inside that water bag, they're not hearing as much, they're not feeling as much, but they are hearing their mother's voice, their father's voice. And when they're outside of the NICU and the heartbeat, when they're outside of the NICU, when you hold a premature baby in kangaroo care, skin to skin, they're naked, your top is off, and you're holding them. They're hearing your heartbeat. They're feeling like they're back in utero again. They're smelling. They're hearing your voice. And you're not rubbing premature babies up and down and rocking them a lot because they're not ready for that kind of stimulation. But you're mimicking the womb environment when you hold them. And premature babies' sensory systems, their brains are mapping everything. They're mapping what they're hearing, they're mapping what they're smelling, they're mapping what their touch, how their body is responding to touch. So the more a parent negates the bad medical touch of a prick or a prod or a pull, a parent's touch is remapping the baby's brain to the good touch, to the bonding
Yes.
touch, to the
Yes.
touch that their brain should be mapping. And
Yes.
those are the things that we try to help parents
Yes.
understand and to give them control back.
Yes.
Because the more control you give a parent back, the more their mental health is empowered. And the
Mhm.
more their mental health is sort of pushing down some of that anxiety, because anxiety comes from a feeling of a terrible lack of control.
Yes.
And if you can give a parent any kind of control back, you're giving them so much more balance. Even a conversation this morning. I have phone calls all the time and texts all the time from parents that I'm helping. I got a text this morning at 6 a.m. Lily, I need to talk to you. And this is a mom who experienced twin loss, who's still in the NICU today.
Mm.
And her a surviving twin is doing okay, but is having some medical challenges right now. And she just needed to air it out and ask me what I had seen and experienced before. And had my babies been through this? And, you know, and she said to me, my husband's telling me to be strong and I'm crying a lot and I'm not sleeping well and I'm really afraid right now. And I said, you know what? You need to cry. You need to cry because your body is resetting by crying and giving you more energy to move forward. And I said, and you need to take a walk and you need to reaffirm and give yourself some grace
Yes.
that this is scary and this is triggering what you loss of your first child, and it's triggering all your fears because the baby had been doing well and is not doing well now. And it's okay. It's okay to, have days that are scary and bad like this and to not feel strong. It's okay. And so, and then reaffirm her with a lot of my stories of different babies who had been through all this stuff.
Yes.
But this gave this mom this phone call. You know what she said to me? She said, okay, now I've got my energy back. I can go back in. I go, really? And she said, really? She said, you put me back up on the platform I need to be on to move back in, to go back into the room. She couldn't go back in. She was frozen.
So
And her
overwhelmed.
husband, yeah. And so just hearing Lily's been through it, Lily's baby had these dips. This is what she did. She took whatever she took from me and it just empowered her to go forward.
Yes.
And that's what I mean by giving them back some control. Even if it's the control of saying your emotional state right now is normal,
Yes.
that's giving them control, that they're not losing it.
That's right. So what you're providing really, Lily, is not just empowerment, but education and empowerment. And that's really what this podcast is all about too, just in general for parents,
Yeah.
especially during the pregnant and postpartum phases. But you are literally in there, whether it be in the NICU with these families or
Hmm.
on calls and
Hmm.
supporting them, 7 days a week, probably at this point, right?
Yeah.
In regards to helping educate and empower them so that they can know, everything seems so chaotic, everything seems so out of order. This is not what I dreamed about. This is not what I had in mind. But even when things seem so chaotic, there are some things you can do, which brings some level of reassurance to them, right? And
Absolutely.
feeling that sense of empowerment.
Exactly. Lifting them back up.
Yeah.
It's not, they have a new job. Whenever we start a new job, we have no roadmap. We don't know what we're doing, but there's somebody to the right or the left of us going, okay, do this way. Let me
Yes.
teach you how to do that. Let me teach you how to do that. I look at myself as a teacher helping a parent navigate their NICU journey.
Yeah.
No one taught me. No one taught me. And I had to sort of figure it out bumping along the whole way. And I grasped any kind of education I could get from anywhere. And it wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot. And it made me mad, made me angry that I didn't have the support I needed, um, because I needed it so badly. And if I had just and I used to stare at the pictures in the NICU of parents who had been there before me and their pictures of their babies now. I used to stare at them and pray that one of them would walk into the NICU. And one did. One walked into the NICU to show her child off to the doctors and nurses. And I cornered the poor woman. And I was like, how did you get through this?
Yeah.
How did you get through it? And her answer was, I don't know. I don't know. I'm like, that didn't help me.
Yeah. That's where this whole what we call like universality piece is so important, right? When you realize like you're not alone, there's other people that have been through something similar, maybe not the exact same story, maybe not the exact same complications or whatever it might be, but yet there's definitely commonalities, right? And so that really helps to parents to understand that they're not alone, and that if now you've taken your kind of unfortunate um lack of, let's say, lack of support, right?
Yeah.
And there was none back then, and now you've created something beautiful, right? From
Yeah.
ashes to beauty sort of thing, right? We
Me
hear
and a bunch of other women did together and continue to do
exactly,
together. Hmm.
exactly. And this
Women and
process
men,
is on and
dads.
on, day by day, year by year. So this is a beautiful thing. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about, now that we've talked a little bit about some of those complications that can happen and hurdles and challenges that parents might experience. Again, like you mentioned, it could be other children at home and all sorts of things. Now they're not working, finances, maybe not having the support needed locally. But tell us a little bit about the spectrum of support that the Tiny Miracles Foundation offers for NICU families, in addition to what hospitals you partner with.
Right. So, as I said, our core support is on-site peer support in the hospitals by volunteer peer mentors like myself. I'm a professional trained volunteer peer mentor, but we also have two social workers on staff that are parents of premature babies themselves, and they rotate into the hospital as well. So we have professional social workers that have walked the life of a preemie parent that are in there too, and that's a very unique find. One of them is bilingual as well. So the Tiny Miracles Foundation provides bilingual support, which is crucial because such a large percentage of parents of premature babies are Latino, or marginalized community, undocumented, Black. Um, so we have to have a balance of the right kind of peer mentors in the hospital to balance the people that we're supporting. Um, so we have that's the core of what we do. The second, I would say, program that's our biggest financial program, financial why we have to fundraise a lot, is the financial assistance program. So many of the families in the NICU are very low income. Thank you, health disparities and medical care disparities and stuff like that, access to medical care. So many of them are low income. Many of them don't have a car. Many of them don't have a husband or a partner or anything. So we're dealing with parents that have no way to get to the hospital. They have no support for whatever they've got going on at home. They have no extra income coming in. So they're going to lose their homes. Many of them are walking to the NICU after a C-section or taking a bus for an hour and a half, or have to go back to work and beg their employers to let them come back to work after 2 weeks. And that is not acceptable. That is not okay, because those parents need to be side by side with those babies. They need to be advocating for their babies. They need to be learning, especially how to be a parent to a fragile baby. So, and the learning part is a big one, because if you have a parent that's gone back to work, not only is that baby not going to do as well, but that parent is also not going to know the baby as well and know how to care for the baby as well. And they do come home with special needs of all kinds, mostly feeding needs, special needs, but there's all kinds of special things that go on with babies that are born premature when they come home.
Yes.
So we provide financial assistance for those families. It's called the Emergency Financial Assistance Program. And we do everything from months and months of Uber rides to paying the mortgage for 2 months to fixing the broken car, gas, electricity, whatever. We average about $1,000 per family, but we've done up to $10,000 a family, depending on how significant it is and depending on how deep our budget is at the time. But we support several hundred families financially a year, and it's a very large program.
That's amazing.
Um, The other things that we do in the NICU is we supply the families with a bag when they arrive that teaches them about us, and it's called a Tiny Treasures Welcome Bag, and it also gives them a bonding doll. And the bonding doll is designed to release a little bit of the stress of the parent having to leave the baby and go home. And that is obviously the number one stress of having to walk away from your baby, and a very unnatural thing. So this bonding doll retains the scent of the parents, and the hospitals that allow it, the bonding doll is right next to the baby in the incubator. So it gives the baby this consistent smell of their parent, and it also is used as a positioning tool for the baby. But for the parents, it's the one gift they have and the one thing they have to give to their baby that's saying, I'm here, I'm here. So our welcome bags also have information about us and the different other programs that we provide. It also has the first book for their baby, so it encourages the parents to read to the baby right away. It has a little hat that says, I'm a miracle. So it's the first gift that sort of they get as soon as they arrive that says, and it's also a cooler bag with ice, with an ice pack. So it's also to encourage them to pump, because breast milk is the most important thing and essential for these babies. So it's a multifaceted little program, the welcome bag program, but we also have a home care bag. The home care bag is to remind the parents we're still here. We have more programs. It gives them the after the NICU programs that we provide. And the home care bag is your starter clothes that will fit your baby, and starter blankets and all kinds of information about what we can do for them when they leave. Because we have a very large network. So our after the NICU program is sometimes more beneficial to these parents than when we're in the NICU. Because when we're in the NICU, they're really in fight and flight mode, and they don't know or have time for sometimes to ask for help. When they get out is when the war is over and PTSD hits hard, and they're like, I don't know what happened to me. I'm a changed person. I need to be with other people that are like me and have been through this, and I need to share my story over and over with other people and feel more normalized by being around people that have been through what I've been through. So we have multiple support groups afterwards, online and in person. We have an education series that we pick different topics, and a lot of them are situations that are very common to parents of premature babies. So some of them would be, reflux. Reflux is a big one. Sensory integration disorder is another big one. And so it's again validating, okay, this is because my baby was a preemie and this is what I can do about it. People don't even know what sensory integration disorder is. I didn't know, and my child had it, and I had no clue why she was so out of sync all the time. And then finally, a friend of mine who had a slightly autistic child said she's showing signs of sensory integration disorder. I'm like, what the heck is that? And sure enough, many, many babies that are born premature have sensory integration disorder because their bodies process things, their brain process touch and noise that they shouldn't have been processing. So their sensory mapping is quite off. And there's a lot you can do about that. So we have the education series, we have the support groups, and then we have family fun days. And we have NICU alumni gatherings. And those are really popular. Parents come back from all corners of Fairfield County and New Haven County, and they drive miles just to be together and to celebrate their children together and talk to each other. We have parents the children are running in, and then we have parents who are wheelchairing their children in. Then we have parents whose kids are on oxygen that come, parents who are on G-tube babies that come. And all of a sudden you look over and the two G-tube moms have found each other. The two wheelchair moms have found each other. And if they haven't found each other, I'm dragging them to each other and say, and they help each other. And so they become mentors to each other. And so we just create the community. So the Tiny Miracles Foundation is the only organization in Fairfield County and New Haven County that create a community of parents of premature babies who essentially reach out and help each other. They share resources. They form their own playgroups with each other. And, I have two moms whose children had significant brain bleeds, and both of their children have cerebral palsy. Their children are the same age, a boy and a girl, and they have met 3 or 4 times now at our family fun days, and now they hang out together with their children. And it
Wonderful.
really validates their kids are the same age, and their kids are friends, and their child has a friend who's like them, you know. And that's, who's lucky enough to create these environments and these bonds for these families than us,
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
see
it's
that happen.
a
And
blessing, right? To have
yeah,
community, but then to be able to really connect sometimes on very personal or similar stories, and not
yeah,
not feeling like you're alone in all of that. That's amazing.
yeah.
And so tell me, what are the hospitals that you are affiliated with in Connecticut?
So we started with Stanford Hospital, expanded to Norwalk, then expanded to Bridgeport Hospital, then expanded to Danbury, then expanded to St. Vincent's, then expanded to Yale.
Yale, New Haven.
So
Okay.
did I miss one? No.
Danbury?
Yeah, I said Danbury.
Oh, okay.
So
Yep.
Stanford, Norwalk, Danbury, St. Vincent's, Bridgeport, and Yale.
Excellent.
And we do support any family by referral, and we get a lot of them. So we're supporting a lot of families from Greenwich Hospital. We're not there only because of politics with Greenwich. They have difficulty bringing outside nonprofits in, and so we're there, but we're not.
Okay.
Our programs are the doctors at Greenwich Hospital very much know us and very much refer their families to us. We're just not physically there, and our bags aren't physically there. We don't have our financial assistance program there, but many of their families join in on our family NICU family fun days and our education series, and are supported by peer mentors virtually. Um, and New York, if a family is referred to us, we are supporting them.
Amazing.
But those are the partners where we're on site, the hospitals where we're on site.
Excellent. So,
Mhm.
Lily, what would you say? I mean, this is amazing work, and you've started in one hospital, expanded to various hospitals through Connecticut. What are the most important tips that you would want to give any viewers watching today? Maybe somebody who has struggled or has currently struggled with a high risk pregnancy or NICU experience, or maybe somebody currently in a high risk pregnancy that might be anticipating a NICU experience, or maybe family or friends. What kind of tips would you want to leave them with today?
The most important thing I would say is do not try to do this alone. Do not withhold what you're feeling and what you need. When you're going through a high risk pregnancy, you need an army. You need an army of support if it's not family and medical care army. And do not think you're being psycho. Make that phone call if something doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Make that phone call. The only way my kids would be here today is because I had people on, back then we had no cell phones. I had people on beepers and beeped to them and said, I'm not right, called my doctor and said, I'm not right. How would he know if I hadn't advocated for myself?
Mhm.
Right? So, my biggest piece of advice is you are what you feel physically and emotionally. You need to tell other people. You need to express yourself, and you need to get an army. You should be working with a maternal fetal medicine doctor and not an OB, just an OBGYN. If your OBGYN has not referred you to a maternal fetal medicine doctor with a high risk pregnancy, you need one. Um, there are many that we are involved with. There's also concierge ones, if you can afford it, that can walk you through a difficult pregnancy and get you the right support system that you need. So there's a lot of resources out there, and we can guide you to those resources for before you have the baby, or if you're trying to have a baby after having a premature baby. We can guide you to step one, step two. Um, and then if you've had a premature baby, to take advantage of what we're offering, take advantage of the Tiny Miracles Foundation's programs and services, because trying to navigate the NICU journey alone is extremely lonely and extremely detrimental to your mental health. And you may not want to or think you need to expose your feelings to another parent of a premature baby. But once you do, and once you allow that, you are giving yourself a gift. You are, if it's not a pill, and you don't need necessarily a pill. A lot of people just run to a therapist and take a pill. And sometimes it's easier to just talk to somebody who walked through it and believe that, even though your stories may not be exact, that person understands you probably better than anybody that's around you,
Yeah.
and can support you in a better way.
Yeah.
Um, and also to know when you're beyond needing just peer to peer support. If you're not sleeping, if you're not sleeping at all, and you're finding yourself non functional, you need more therapy. You need potentially medication, and not to be afraid of that either. And to know when your anxiety is way too high. I went through a period of time when both my children were diagnosed with head bleeds and one had double collapsed lungs. I wasn't sleeping for days, days. And I called my doctor and I said, no therapist is going to be able to help me sleep. I need medication. I need something that I can, if I have to pump and dump or whatever, but I need medication. I cannot sleep and I'm not going to be able to get through this if I don't sleep.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's asking for help. My biggest piece of advice is allow yourself to get help. It's not weak. You're not weak. You're not supposed to be expected to go through this and fight through this on your own, and feeling like you're failing if you're asking for help and needing help. You're actually doing the right thing if you give yourself help.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so that would be my biggest piece of advice. And the other piece of advice is to know and believe that you are the most essential caregiver for your baby once you've had a premature baby, and that your body, your brain, and your words are going to heal that baby more than any doctor and nurse that's in there. And to believe in the power of yourself as the essential caregiver, and push the doctors and nurses aside and say, I'll take the temperature, I'll change the diaper, I'll bathe the baby, I'll hold the feed, I'll put the milk in the bottle. And whatever the hospital will allow, take charge.
Yeah.
Because not only is that giving the baby a better chance of developmentally, brain development growing better, parent involvement, it's study after study has proved that the more the parent is involved and the more the parent takes charge, the more the baby does well after the NICU. That's proven millions of studies. And there's a lot of outreach right now and a lot of task force really pushing NICU environments to be 100% family-centered care, and really
Yeah.
pushing NICU professionals to encourage and demand that the parents are involved. But the parents' involvement isn't just for the baby. It gives the mother and the father control back. So it gives them the ability to heal as the baby's healing,
That's right.
because they can be a parent. They have a way to help. They have a way to fix. So
That's right. Yeah.
all really important.
And that's really amazing that, babies' brains or preemies' brains can heal just like adult brains can heal. Our brains are malleable. So there is hope, even if people have been through very traumatic situations or traumatic loss, things like that. There are ways to heal. And certainly, like you said, the Tiny Miracles Foundation has numerous amounts of support with people that have maybe been through similar situations, high risk pregnancies, um, NICU experiences, in addition to professional psychotherapy. If somebody is really having more significant, symptoms, it's affecting their functioning. If somebody is not eating, lack of appetite, for instance, or overeating, somebody is not able to sleep at night. I mean, that could be a medical emergency right now. If you're not able to sleep 3 nights in a row, that could somebody could become, even psychotic. So we want to avoid that. We want to make sure people are getting the right help, and even if that's taking something for sleep. Obviously, there's your support through the Tiny Miracles Foundation or similar programs maybe now. Fast forward to 2024, hopefully around the globe, psychotherapy, and then psychiatric treatment if needed, like you mentioned, medication, right? Whether it be to sleep or even with dealing with maybe some depression, anxiety, or PTSD. But again, there's so many different interventions that help. So be, like you said, being able to voice what's going on so that you can get the right help or combination of helps is going to help you move towards healing sooner than later. So that's the good news.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is, it's out there and it's free. It's out there and it's free for most people. Our organization, all of our services are free, but
Yes.
we can also get professional free support if it's needed. And many cases, insurance will cover this. Insurance will handle almost all of it, and Medicare and Medicaid and stuff like that. But it's just really important to know that it's normal to ask for help. It's needed. Do not expect yourself to be able to try to get through this without the bricks under the house, because the house is going through a hurricane. It needs a
Right.
lot of help.
That's right.
So,
Yeah. And it's not a form of weakness, right? And I think a lot of people
mm-mm.
think, oh, well, maybe I'm weak. I'm not strong enough, like you mentioned
Right.
in our previous
Yes.
call. But we're all human, right? We're not superhuman. We can have, but we are going to have emotions. We are going to feel things when things happen in life. If we don't, then I would say, well, gee, what's going on there, right? Like I might
Right.
raise an eyebrow, but it's these are typical normal responses. We are human beings. We have feelings. We have emotions, but we also want to continue to move towards health, not just for our own sake, but for the baby's sake, the preemie's sake, or other families,
Yep.
whatever it might be. So hope is on the horizon. It's just a matter of verbalizing what's going on and getting connected to the right supports. And obviously, you guys are great, doing amazing work here in Connecticut. What would you say, maybe for those parents that are going through situations like this? With NICU experiences and so forth outside of Connecticut or any other spot, country, or location globally, how can they get the right
So
support?
that's an easy thing. There's something I wanted to say that I forgot to say. I quickly want to say a lot of parents in the NICU won't show their emotions to the nurses and doctors and will act like they're totally fine because they don't want to appear as a failing parent. So a lot of nurses and doctors do not have any clue how emotionally fragile many of these parents are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the key to peer parent mentoring, because the parents will say more to a peer mentor than they will to a medical professional because they don't want to appear weak and failing and not able to handle what's in front of them to the NICU professionals. But nationally, I'm on the board of the NICU Parent Network. And what the NICU Parent Network is I call them my babies because I trained a lot of them. But what the NICU Parent is an association of organizations similar, sorry, my dogs,
That's
similar
okay.
to the Tiny Miracles Foundation around the country. So there's well over 100 organizations similar to what Tiny Miracles Foundation does all over the country. So in Connecticut, southwestern Connecticut, there's the Tiny Miracles Foundation in these hospitals. And we take referrals from all over the country, but mostly from New York and Connecticut. But say you have a baby in Miami, Florida, I would refer you to ICU Baby. See, if you have a baby in Cleveland, I would refer you to Project NICU. Um, Other really amazing resources are on social media. So, Hand to Hold is one of the biggest organizations nationally, and Graham's Foundation that have national peer to peer support networks that they match you online to anybody all over the country
Oh,
with
good.
professional peer mentors. And Hand to Hold and Graham's Foundation are the two biggest. And Hand to Hold has hundreds of podcasts, hundreds of ways to get support, and so does Graham's Foundation. So if your community doesn't have it on site, you have Graham's Foundation, Hand to Hold, and many other organizations, but those are the two biggest that really can provide the right kind of support for you through the internet. Um, and people will walk you through your journey the same way I'm talking to you right now, and really are quite impactful and really can get you the resources you need. Um, and they also have financial assistance programs. Project Sweet Pea is another. I mean, I can go on. There's tons. Um, but the NICU Parent Network, NPN, it's called. If you go onto their website, you can click where, the members, and you can click on the map of the United States if there's an organization in your community. So the NICU Parent Network is a way to find if there's an organization in your community.
That's
But you can
excellent.
also just call the Tiny Miracles Foundation and we can refer you to the right people in your community. And if I can't find someone for you in your community, I would refer you to Graham's Foundation or Hand to Hold.
Okay.
Almost every parent that we have, I also refer to the affirmations of Dear NICU Mama. And Dear NICU Mama is letters to other NICU mamas, mothers, um, and their affirmations that you read daily from them to you. And that is a passive way to receive support,
Mhm. Yeah.
but I use it as a tool for myself as a mentor. I meant this morning, I sent three passages, affirmations to three of my most high need parents at the moment.
Wow.
And they were different affirmations, and each one was meeting them where they are at the moment. One of them needs a lot of courage because their baby is having some serious issues. Another one's about to go home and she's scared to take the baby home.
Mhm.
And another one just had her baby. So these affirmations are just a little different based on where they are in their journey. Um, but Dear NICU Mama is the fastest growing support for internet families on Instagram.
Wow. That's amazing.
The
Good.
fastest. There's
That's,
something like 44,000 or 50,000 followers, and there's that another thousand new ones a day. I do not advise that parents go on TikTok. It's too triggering.
yeah.
Parents share too much, and I think it's personally way too triggering. What you're better off following is passive. Our social media is very passive. So you'll see on Wednesdays we do an inspiring story of a baby that was here and is now here.
Mhm.
It's better to watch the journey of a premature baby from start to finish in one slide as opposed to the whole journey, because the whole journey can be way too triggering for a family. So I would avoid TikTok because
Okay.
it's not filtered enough. It's not done by people who've really studied what's best for parents of premature babies.
Yes.
Um, you know,
Sure. Yeah. No, you want to get to the right resources. Just like anything on the internet, you can find really great things and then you can find not great things, right?
yeah, you just,
Obviously,
yeah.
if you're going through a lot or you're dealing with PTSD or whatever, sometimes staying away from, the
Hmm.
internet is the best thing. But should there be good resources, which you're pointing at them out to us today, those are the ones you want to gravitate to and
Yeah,
all the rest,
yeah.
right? Absolutely.
The Tiny Miracles Foundation also has a private NICU page. So, I mean, private Facebook page.
Okay.
It's not our public one. So, if you go onto our website has a lot of resources for after the NICU. And if you go on the after the NICU button, you'll find them all. There's directories, specialists, and all kinds of stuff. And in the NICU, if you scroll down from the in the NICU button, you'll find a page, the Facebook page that is private. And that is all of the parents of premature babies in our New Haven and Fairfield County community coming together to support each other on that private Facebook page. And that's another way to get support. We have chat groups. Someone went onto our chat group a couple weeks ago and said, my child needs this eye surgery. Has anyone else had it? She didn't want to go onto the Facebook page itself, which is private. She wanted to go even more private and go into the chat group to talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So there's
Excellent.
lots of ways to get support and definitely give that gift to yourself.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe if anyone's living in any other country in the world, again, there's
Hmm.
got to be supports. It's just a matter these wonderful internet supports could be a good starting point, or maybe through their
Hmm.
hospital they'll get some local supports for NICU families as well.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, this has been amazing, Lily. I want to thank you for your time today. And I want to encourage anyone, if you would like to reach out to the Tiny Miracles Foundation, or even whether you need support. I know there's certainly lots of different types of supports the Tiny Miracles Foundation offers, or if
Hmm.
you would like to donate to this amazing cause of helping NICU families, the best way is to get on the website, right?
Yep.
ttmf.org.
www.ttmf.org or the Tiny Miracles Foundation, but
Excellent.
www.ttmf.org. And definitely go there and look around and see what we can do to help you if you're in our local area or not, because we will guide you to if you're not in our local area.
Yeah.
And happy to help.
That's amazing. So, Lily, it's truly been amazing you having you on the show today. I know
It
you've
was great
shared
talking to you,
a
Carla.
lot of
Thank you
golden
for all
nuggets.
you do for these families. We're so lucky that there's people that are advocating for them and doing these podcasts. And I mean, the more the better, because if people just find one thing and they're just Googling the internet or finding one little thing to jump on, that it could be a lifesaver for them.
Yes,
They
yes.
could find this podcast, so they could find you, and it really change things for them.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, no, if we all can join together, right? We all do our
Mm-hmm.
part. I know you're
Mm-hmm.
doing with Tiny Miracles. I work as a psychotherapist, coach, speaker, trainer, and there's a lot of other professionals that really have a heart for this. Of course, all of us, even
Yeah.
one life, right, is we're
Yeah.
able to impact. So that is a true blessing. So thank you so much, Lily. I
Thank you for
appreciate
having me on.
sharing your expertise and clarity in regards to the amazing work you do and impact to the NICU families through the Tiny Miracle Foundation. If anyone viewing today would like to be in touch with Lily Smith Klein, you can also contact her at her email. It's LeeLeeKlein at TTM as in Mary, F as in Frank.org. So feel free to be in touch with Lily if that's something you're looking to connect with her on. And if you have found this time to be educational, empowering, and insightful to your health and well being, please click on the button to subscribe to my channel below. And also, please feel free to share this episode or others with your friends and family for those that would benefit from today's episode and health and well-being for parents during this season of pregnancy and the postpartum periods. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to sharing what you need to know next time. Take care and be well.